Hello and welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. The OPP has arrested 4 men after a brutal assault and kidnapping in Nipigon. Police won't confirm it, but the incident may be connected to a young woman's disappearance in that community last spring. Police were notified last Sunday about a man who was abducted, forcibly confined, and assaulted with a firearm. The victim suffered significant injuries but managed to escape from his captors. OPP have now arrested 29-year-old Harold Salt, 32-year-old Billy John Thompson, 45-year-old Jason Lawson Balladis, and 29-year-old Andrew Otway on charges of kidnapping while using firearms, aggravated assault, and assault with a weapon. Otway is the brother of 26-year-old Alyssa Turnbull, who was last seen in the Nipigon area on March 23rd. OPP have not released any details about the motive for the kidnapping and assault and will only say that police are treating the two cases as separate. Turnbull's disappearance led to a massive police presence in Nipigon in April, and there have been numerous police searches and excavations in the area over the past 6 months. OPP have been extremely tight-lipped about the status of their investigation and will only say the search for Turnbull continues. Her family members have said they're hoping for answers, but are preparing for the worst. There are varying degrees of reaction from political representatives here in the Northwest following the federal throne speech in Ottawa this week. On Wednesday, Governor General Julie Payette read the speech, which the Liberals wanted to use as a hard reset, considering how much the world has changed since the start of the pandemic. While Thunder Bay Rainy River Liberal MP Marcus Pulowski says there were many positive points from the speech that residents in northwestern Ontario should focus on.
For us, I think the promise for more money for the sectors hardest hit, and specifically the
However, the Conservative MP for Kenora, Eric Malillo, says while he was happy to see Northern priorities acknowledged, like drinking water in First Nations, broadband internet access, and support for the tourism sector, he was disappointed by what was presented overall. Malillo says he doesn't want to speculate about a fall federal election, but believes it's up to the Prime Minister to win the confidence of the House when the parties begin debate. A spike in COVID-19 cases in remote First Nations in the Northwest is causing concern among health authorities and Indigenous leaders. A woman in Sandy Lake tested positive after she arrived home from Winnipeg last week. Her case is deemed asymptomatic and is being overseen at the community's isolation site. A child in Pekanjikam also tested positive in recent days and is reportedly doing well. And the Sioux Lookout Health Authority is reporting a 6th case in Casablanca. NAN Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler and Health Minister Patty Haidu say they're watching the situations closely to ensure this doesn't lead to anything larger.
That we need to make sure that communities have the capacity or the health authorities or NAN to be able to properly respond to what is happening on the ground and to make sure that this does not become a full-blown crisis.
Certainly community leaders themselves, though, have done a phenomenal job with the monies provided to them to set up systems that protect their community that are very specific to their own community's needs and perspectives. And we're going to continue that work with Indigenous leaders.
Meanwhile, Sol Mamakwa, the MPP for Kiewit-Noong, was where the latest cases are located, says faster testing timelines are crucial to prevent an outbreak, as that could cripple northern health providers. Many northern communities are geographically isolated, and some residents are unable to isolate due to the housing crisis that has affected First Nations for decades. Mamakwa stresses now is not the time for squabbling between federal and provincial service providers.
Flying in and out, getting our tests out and kind of getting more on the scheduled flights is a very difficult thing. But I think since about 3 months ago, I know Northwestern Health Unit had transferred some of the responsibility to Sioux Lookout First Nations Authority to be able to do the testing and the contact tracing on reserves.
Federal government is providing millions of dollars to make heating in First Nation communities cleaner and more modern. It's long been a goal of many Indigenous leaders to move away from reliance on diesel energy, and thanks to Monday's announcement, a dozen communities will be switching to more environmentally friendly modes of heating. Corey Nordstrom has more.
I'm very excited to announce that our government is investing close to $13 million in 6 local projects.
Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Haidu took part in a semi-virtual news conference to announce plans to reshape the way homes and community buildings are heated in a number of First Nations. The announcement on behalf of Natural Resources Minister Seamus O'Regan revolves around a switch to cleaner energy, with all but one involving biomass heating.
These projects will also create jobs, reduce the reliance on fossil fuels, lower greenhouse gas emissions, and of course, demonstrate the efficiency and cost effectiveness of biomass heating.
Bingwi Neashi received more than $1 million to replace the community's sawmill diesel heating with biomass, linking it to 3 new biomass-compatible housing units.
BNA has been able to utilize the wood waste from its operating sawmill to heat its facility in the wintertime, displacing dirty diesel heating generators in the process.
Over $2.5 million is earmarked towards the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation. The funds will be used to improve existing wood stove heating in 6 Nan communities in a move that is both safer and greener.
My hope is that if we can really demonstrate how effective and how critical this is, that the federal government, I think, would be more receptive to having an initiative like this right across the Nan territories.
Fiddler notes the improvements to heating could lessen the number of preventable house fires in many Nan communities that don't have adequate resources in stopping a blaze once it begins.
Some communities have fire trucks, some don't. Some communities have fire hydrants, some don't. Some communities have trained volunteer fire crews, and some don't. So I think what we hope to see, or what I want to see moving forward, is that we begin to create standards on fire safety.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Hospitals in Kenora, Dryden, and Fort Frances are receiving a total of $500,000 to help tackle the various infrastructure needs of those facilities. This comes as part of an annual funding packet from the province. As Adam Riley explains, it isn't glamorous new medical technology, but critical components to maintain levels of care.
Through the Ontario government's Infrastructure Renewal Fund, the dialysis unit at Lake of the Woods District Hospital is moving on up to the 4th floor, which CEO Ray Reset says, in addition to relieving the dialysis unit of congestion, it will also have a positive effect for the emergency department.
Emerge is, probably even more congested than dialysis. So, we invest in one change, and then we gain the benefit of the change on the backside for another service that also needs space. And it also, it just allows us to alleviate things which, from a patient point of view, are pretty poor when you're really in crowded spaces. Think of COVID and the need for distancing and so on.
Reset says his facility received just over $300,000 for the project, and patients can expect the new dialysis bays to open up in November. The Dryden Regional Health Centre is putting its funding to the sum of $147,000 to work on replacing the facility's water heating pumps and boiler controls. It's nothing fancy, according to CEO Doreen Armstrong-Ross, but it is integral for operations.
Those are really key items, obviously, in an organization like this to keep us functioning. Really important for our, surgical programs, and of course, anything that we do. So, they're not interesting medical equipments, but it is things that keep the building and the organization running.
Riverside Healthcare, which runs several facilities in the Rainy River District, including the La Vérendrye Hospital in Fort Frances, will be using its $108,000 to improve air filtration and circulation systems, something Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford says is very important right now during the pandemic. He knows the only way for hospitals to stay ahead of the service demands is with infrastructure work like this to prepare for what he calls a dual track.
One is to have capacity ongoing to deal with COVID. The other one is to ensure they have all of the tools at their disposal and the capacity in other important areas to get restarted or to expand because healthcare marches on.
Thunder Bay's Regional Health Sciences Centre received the most funding in the region, to the tune of $750,000, but no details have been provided as to what project that money will be allocated towards. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Coming up after the break, union and government officials react to the potential sale of the Kenora Forest Products Sawmill. As we reported last week, a buyer has been found for the Kenora Forest Products sawmill, which was shuttered last September due to a downturn in the markets. The sale is set to be complete early next month, and union and government leaders are getting excited about the opportunities a new owner could bring to the sawmill. Adam Riley reports.
Everything is positive, but again, you want to see the deal actually finalized in an actual sit down.
Unifor National Representative Stephen Boone is very optimistic following news that a buyer has been found for the Kenora Forest Products sawmill. The facility was shut down last year following a severe downturn in the softwood lumber market. Then later in 2019, the owners, Prendeville Industries, filed for bankruptcy, leaving the future of the mill in doubt and 125 workers at the facility laid off. Earlier this month, the Canadian Press reported that Itasca Capital Limited had acquired the mill for $11.5 million. Kenora Mayor Dan Reynard says the purchase couldn't have come at a better time.
This is huge potential for our community, and we're really looking forward to finding out more details. The sale goes through the first week in October, and hopefully, at that point we'll have an understanding of, what their plan is and when they're going to start operations again.
The mill is expected to undergo a name change to Green First Forest Products, and the new owners believe the mill's production rate of 100 million board feet per year can be doubled following some improvements. Boone says Unifor is just waiting for the deal to become finalized before meeting with the new owners to see what they have in mind for the mill.
My guess is based on the market, they're going to want to start it up yesterday if they can, because the market is so good. But then if they're planning on investing long term, obviously that takes some time to order equipment and make those changes. So we need to have a discussion about what their strategic plan is over the next year or two.
Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford says he is watching the situation with measured excitement. On one hand, he is happy to see good quality jobs stay in the region, but he is concerned on the amount of wood fiber that would be available for the sawmill. He says when the mill was in operation, there was a 15% shortfall in fiber availability, and believes other players in the market may restrict further access.
All's not peaceful out here in northwestern Ontario. Obviously, Resolute has an iron grip on a lot of the fiber in many of the baskets out in northwestern Ontario, west of Thunder Bay, and very little, if any, forestry activity in northwestern Ontario outside of Thunder Bay.
In spite of that, Rickford is positive of some recent changes to the Sustainable Forest License system, which could benefit Kenora. He also says Resolute is looking at a restart of its Ignace sawmill, which has been shuttered since the spring of 2019, which will further benefit the region. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Province's Special Investigations Unit has invoked its mandate following a tragic end to a missing persons case in the Dryden area last weekend. Back on September 12th, the OPP began looking for 24-year-old Nazari Giletti of Vancouver with concerns about his safety. He was spotted on trail cameras and was last seen near Roosin Road west of Dryden. On September 19th, he was located by police in a wooded area of Mayshon, but according to the SIU, Giletti sustained a gunshot wound when officers attempted to contain him. He was flown to hospital in Thunder Bay, but was pronounced dead the following day. The SIU won't say if the shot was self-inflicted, but they confirmed Giletti was in possession of a firearm, and they don't believe any of the officers fired their weapons. The probe into the death is ongoing. A pair of Ontario NDP members in the region are touting a plan that would help a number of sectors not supported by the provincial or federal government. The plan, titled Save Main Street, focuses on things like utility payment freezes for small and medium-sized businesses, or a fund for those businesses to expand their digital footprint in order to sell products online. The plan was originally introduced by the New Democrats in April and has changed as more shortcomings came evident to both the public and the politicians.
Some of them were losing their homes, some of them were losing their livelihoods, a way of life, and when the government does not respond to the to the calls of these businesses.
We know that people are still suffering and are coming to us and saying, I need help. And so this plan was innovative because we're wiser now. We know a bit more. And it may change again when we think of something else that business points out, right?
Other parts of the plan include retraining for women and racialized Ontarians, as well as investing in more childcare centers. Starting next week, operations for Marathon's OPP detachment will be moving to its new location along Peninsula Road. The official move-in date is slated for September 30th, but if officers have already had a chance to see the interior of the new detachment and have started planning out where equipment will be stored, Constable Peter Bertrand says the new facility will have several benefits, including quick access to the highway, which is something the current detachment
The room
lacks.
is going to be a big plus for us, just having the space for storage, etc. I mean, as you can see, it's a huge building, and it's actually built that it can be expanded more if time comes, and it happens to be that. I don't know if I'll see that in my lifetime, but again, it's a beautiful building. We're looking at approximately the 30th is supposed to be, 30th of September is supposed to be the estimated date of switching things over, radio contact.
A second detachment being built in Fort Frances is expected to be completed and staffed by this fall. Coming up next, Red Lake is a flurry of activity despite being in the midst of a global pandemic and recovering from a mass evacuation. Red Lake is buzzing with activity thanks to the completion of one infrastructure project that will benefit the social and physical health of residents, and another project is underway that will benefit drivers and the municipality's assets. Adam Riley has details.
A $250,000 investment from FedNor last year is having a major impact on Red Lake this year. In March of 2019, then Kenora MP Bob Nault announced the funding to build a roof over top of a hockey rink to create a market pavilion, which was completed last fall.
The Market Pavilion here in Red Lake is astronomical for our community and has really benefited our recreation cluster that we're developing here in Red Lake.
Moda says that cluster includes the Heritage Center, a skate park, ball diamond, splash pad, and the Market Pavilion itself. As a result of COVID-19, limits have been placed on indoor and outdoor attendance capacities, and despite it having a roof, Moda says the Market Pavilion qualifies as an outdoor space.
As compared to indoor, having 50 people indoors, with the Northwestern Health Unit regulations, we're allowed to have up to 100 people outdoors. So as long as people remain socially distanced, using all the precautions, we can have more people under the Market Pavilion roof.
As part of the overall recreation cluster, work is also being done on Hamel Road next to the pavilion. along with other areas of the community. In total, Red Lake received $5 million from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Plan, which is being devoted to above and underground infrastructure.
Our areas here in Red Lake were in dire need of this, and we were glad the provincial government saw our application, recognized our need, and nominated us to the federal government, and we received our dollars for it. So we're very thankful for that.
As a result of COVID-19 and the recent mass evacuation due to Red Lake 49, MODA says construction will hopefully be wrapped by next summer. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Up until this point, First Nation communities have provided a good example of how to prevent the spread of COVID-19 with checkpoints and travel bans to their communities. But leaders with the Matawat First Nations are worried that winter may bring more challenges when ice roads open for the season. Winter roads create more options for transportation to Matawat's remote communities, and its executive director says checkpoints will likely be put in place to prevent non-essential outsiders from entering. David Paul Achny-Penescum says the ability of vehicles and snowmobiles to travel between First Nations will cause problems if residents don't follow the proper protocols.
All of our communities have to pretty well have some kind of an agreement in place that they will respect each other's protocols that are established. Definitely, there will be lockdowns for sure. I can see that coming.
The ice roads likely won't be ready for use until January, meaning those plans and agreements have some time to be crafted the safest way possible. The Anishinaabe Business Professional Association hosted its first virtual annual general meeting Thursday. The online gathering was highlighted by a panel of 3 Indigenous business leaders presenting how the group and its member communities can help support First Nation businesses. MPP Sol Mamakwa kicked off the event and praised the association's focus on helping grow First Nation businesses and supporting communities. Supercom Industries project manager Robert Starr and John Glover from Greenstone Gold highlighted how their companies are planning to provide First Nations with jobs, education, and community support.
Our goal is to provide accessible, culturally relevant training to members and to help pair members with the career of their choice. There's many jobs associated with mining and many spin-off jobs associated with the projects. We want to see First Nation engineers, First Nation geologists, First Nation management. So our goal is to connect with the youth in 3 communities to help drive this community-based training strategy.
Thinking about along the lines of what ABPA is mandated to do and what the goals and objectives are, my job really is, and this is what I tell my team, our goal is to try and get as much dollars out of this project into the hands of our people.
Highlights from the gathering can be found on the Anishinaabe Business Professional Association's social media channels. With Thanksgiving just around the corner, the district's medical officer of health is reminding residents that COVID-19 hasn't gone away and gathering sizes are now reduced. Dr. Janet DeMille is encouraging people to be very mindful of the gathering limits, which are set to 10 people indoors and 25 outdoors. Those gatherings should only include those in your social bubble, and if people can't social distance, mask wearing and other COVID measures should be taken, as social gatherings have led to a recent uptick in cases.
What we've seen across the province and in other areas in Canada, those types of social gatherings are leading to the spread of the virus. And there have been situations where over 50% of people in a private residence or a cottage have got the virus and then have gone and passed it on to people in their workplace or people in the school or something, and it spreads very quickly as a result of that.
For those traveling outside the region, DeMille is reminding residents to take extra precautions to ensure they're not bringing COVID-19 back into their community. And that's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.